On this vote, the yeas are 60 and the nays are 40. 3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn, having voted in the affirmative, the motion upon reconsideration is agreed to.
The U.S. Senate voted 60-40 to break a Democratic filibuster on government funding legislation in a key step toward reopening the government. The vote came after a critical group of 8 Senate Democratic centrists reached a deal with Senate GOP leaders and the White House to reopen the government in exchange for a future vote on extending enhanced affordable care subsidies. Senators finally overcame the stalemate that has roiled the chamber for 5 weeks after 8 Senate Democrats agreed to a deal that included a later vote on extending health care subsidies, which had been on the table for weeks, as well as assurances that federal workers laid off during the shutdown would be brought back on. Democratic Whip Dick Durbin broke with other members of Senate Democratic leadership to advance the package, alongside Democratic Senators Catherine Cortez Masto, John Fetterman, Maggie Hassan, Jeanne Shaheen, Tim Kaine, Jackie Rosen, and Independent Senator Angus King. Republican Senator Rand Paul was the sole GOP no vote. However, there is more to come before the government can reopen. Any one senator can delay consideration of the package for several days, and the House will have to return and adopt the deal struck in the Senate. Democratic senators who opposed advancing a bill to reopen the government vowed to keep fighting to make health care more affordable, expressing that the promise of a vote to extend Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies isn't enough to win them over. Senator John Hickenlooper lamented after voting against a procedural step toward passing a package to extend government funding through January. "I voted no just because, piss off, I'm just frustrated. There's no good choice, right?" he said, vowing that Democrats will use every other tool to extend ACA subsidies. Though the Colorado Democrat personally opposed the negotiated package to end the shutdown, he denied that his colleagues who voted in favor of advancing the measure late Sunday were caving. "They're doing what they feel is helping the most number of people, and they're not going to stop fighting to get those subsidies restored," he said. Charting the path forward for Democrats, Hickenlooper said lawmakers will now set out to write an ACA subsidies bill that would make Republicans squirm if they oppose it. Boy, they're going to be telling all their people, "We really don't care about your health care." And let them vote that way. "There's elections coming up in about a year, if I'm not mistaken," he added. Senator Mark Kelly said he's wary of skyrocketing health care rates as Americans begin to enroll in coverage under the Affordable Care Act with costly premiums.
Hey folks, I just voted no on this funding deal, and it's because in the richest country in the world, we should be able to afford helping the American people with health care, with their costs. And they're skyrocketing because this president doesn't care about them, and he wanted to give a big giant tax cut to the wealthiest Americans and pay for it by jacking up people's health care costs.
The key bloc of Senate Democratic centrists who agreed to reopen the government without achieving the party's chief demand, securing billions of dollars in health care tax credits, defended their move on Sunday, calling it the only deal on the table. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, a retiring Democrat from New Hampshire, said Republicans made clear repeatedly over recent months that this was the only deal on the table. "Now I understand that not all of my Democratic colleagues are satisfied with this agreement, but waiting another week or another month wouldn't deliver a better outcome," she said in a news conference as the Senate appeared on track to advance their deal Sunday night. "There was no vote that we were going to get on the Affordable Care Act premium tax credits," Shaheen told CNN. "We have a guaranteed vote by a guaranteed date on a bill that we will write, not that the Republicans will write," Shaheen said, adding that her party will engage with GOP senators because she said they need a bipartisan bill that we know is going to get enacted into law. Senator Angus King, an independent from Maine who caucuses with Democrats, said there is now a measurable chance a future health care premiums bill can become law.
"There was zero chance of dealing with the ACA issue as long as the shutdown continued. Now, I don't know, 50-50, but there's a lot better chance now than there was this morning because nothing was happening and there was no evidence that another week or another 2 weeks or Thanksgiving or Christmas was suddenly the Republicans were to come to us and say, "Oh, we want to now talk about the ACA." if they weren't going to do it by now, what's going to change in the next 2 weeks that's going to make them do it? The sum is we are closer to the possibility of work on the ACA tax credits for the people of this country than we were yesterday and than we were a week ago, 2 weeks ago, or a month ago. So this agreement tonight is a win for the American people.
We have federal workers that were suffering. We have TSA agents. We have airport controllers. And we were seeing lines to our food banks in northern Nevada. These were lines that I hadn't seen since the pandemic.
And what we have in this bill is the restoration of all the furloughed employees and a guarantee of their back pay, the restoration of all RIFT employees who got RIFT after October 1 with all of their back pay, and a guarantee of no RIFs. No RIFs going forward. 2 million federal workers, not just my 300,000, 2 million federal workers who are not uniform military now have a guarantee of no RIFs going forward. So they don't have to go into the holiday season with anxiety about what's going to show up on their email one morning at 5:30 a.m. That's a big win for 2 million federal employees, and added together with these other ingredients of robust appropriations bills and a guaranteed path forward to vote on fixing the ACA, that made me sign on and say, yes, we can do it.
Well, first of all, there was, as long as the government shut down, the clear statement from Senator Thune and the Republican majority, and they control the Senate, the House, the White House, was we will not talk about health care with you. So there was no vote that we were going to get on the Affordable Care Act, premium tax credits. We have a guaranteed vote by a guaranteed date on a bill that we will write. Not that the Republicans will write, although I do think it's important for us to engage with them because we need a bipartisan bill that we know is going to get enacted to provide the relief that Americans need. And I think there's a commitment on the part of many of our colleagues to do that.
The real question is, why would a president of the United States pit hungry children against sick children? And that is what President Trump has done. I mean, this is outrageous. We can't reach agreement on government funding, so the government shuts down, and even though the law is clear that he could fund SNAP benefits during a shutdown, he did not. And then he also said, and by the way, I don't really care if people's health insurance premiums get so high they can't afford their care. That's on Donald Trump. My vote today was to do two things, both equally morally important and imperative. One is to make sure that the government is functioning so that our kids eat, so that our elderly citizens eat, so that our air traffic controllers can get some sleep and earn money, get paid while they are working, so that our veterans are protected, and continue the fight to a realistic platform to get the premium tax cuts done. And if that is not successful, then shame on the Republican Party and shame on Donald Trump.
Mr. President, after 40 long days, I'm hopeful that we can finally bring this shutdown to an end. And I don't need to go over all the reasons why it's imperative that we get the government open as soon as possible. From the truly precarious situation we are in with regard to air travel to the fact that our staffs have been working without pay for a full 40 days now, all of us, Republicans and Democrats who support this bill, know that the time to act is now. And so in just a few minutes, I will call up the vehicle for a clean continuing resolution packaged with 3 bipartisan year-long appropriations bills: agricultural appropriations, military construction, VA appropriations, and legislative branch appropriations. These bills will fund SNAP for the entire fiscal year. They will fund WIC for the entire fiscal year. And they will fund our veterans for the entire fiscal year. After 40 days of uncertainty, I'm profoundly glad to be able to announce that nutrition programs, our veterans, and other critical priorities will have their full-year funding. And my goal is to quickly move to other full-year appropriations bills. As I've said many times, I firmly believe that the way to fund the government is by passing appropriations bills through regular order, a process that gives senators from both parties the fullest chance to make their voices heard. Mr. President, I also want to mention health care. there's been a lot of talk over the last several weeks on both sides of the aisle about the health care crisis in this country. And I'm thankful to be able to say that we have senators, both Democrat and Republican, who are eager to get to work to address that crisis in a bipartisan way. These senators are not interested in political games. They're interested in finding real ways to address health care costs for American families. We also have a president who is willing to sit down and get to work on this issue. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what solutions might be brought forward. Regardless, as I have said for weeks to my Democrat friends, I will schedule a vote on their proposal, and I've committed to having that vote no later than the second week in December. Mr. President, again, I am optimistic that after almost 6 weeks of this shutdown, we'll finally be able to end it. I will call up that bill in a matter of minutes, and I look forward to passing the clean continuing resolution and appropriations bill package in the very near future. Now, Mr. President, I move to proceed to the motion to reconsider the cloture vote on October 16th on the motion to proceed to H.R. 5371.
Though the Senate has cleared a major hurdle, the process is far from complete. Any one senator can delay the package for several days. The House must reconvene and vote on the Senate's deal. Speaker Mike Johnson faces razor-thin margins, and House Democrats, led by Hakeem Jeffries, have already vowed to oppose the plan unless ACA subsidies are guaranteed. If the House ultimately passes the bill, it will head to President Donald Trump's desk, and only then will the government officially reopen. For now, the Senate may have broken the stalemate, but the political battle over health care subsidies is only intensifying.